around here for a little bit?
Just for a little while.
And when you abolish capitalism, what are you going to replace it with, I wonder?
Socialism.
Really?
Yeah.
And what do you think is going to happen under socialism?
Well, we wouldn't have people unemployed.
Really?
We wouldn't have people
No
hungry.
kidding.
We,
no kidding.
We wouldn't have 5% of the world's population.
Really?
25% of
What's
the
the difference between North Korea and South Korea, I wonder?
people in North Korea.
What's the difference between North Korea and South Korea?
The workers in North Korea get paid.
Get paid.
A decent
Really?
wage. Yeah.
Really? And nobody imprisons them, nobody kills them, they're not dying from hunger,
No.
they do not resort to cannibalism, and people in South of Korea, never heard of it. Really?
The Koreans are eating each other.
Really? You never heard of it? That's how bad it is in North Korea.
Well, you have to remember about North Korea is that only a small percentage of the land is farmable.
Well,
They're being choked by imperialism.
Here's the difference between socialism and capitalism.
What?
Capitalism, people prosper. Socialism, people die. Millions.
No.
You know, lady, I was born in USSR. I lived there for 29 years.
Really?
I know the heck what I'm talking about. You have no freaking clue what socialism is all about.
Yeah,
all right? So I'm speaking from first-hand experience. Millions of people dead, and this is one of the mass murderers. Che Guevara, he's a mass murderer. No, you don't think so. You don't think
You're
so.
an exile.
Really?
You're one of the rich people
luck.
they threw out of the country because you were robbing the people.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with the socialism.
So what are you doing here?
Well, just watching at the stupid people like you. Occupying my square, occupying my town. I live over here. What the hell are you doing over here? What are you doing over here?
I'm occupying Wall Street.
Well, you're not allowed to occupy the Wall Street. This is my
Why
town.
not?
Well,
No.
because this is my
I think
town.
that's
They're
not your
doing it
town.
illegally.
No, the people of New York should be bailed out, not all these damn banks that stole our
Really?
money.
They're for
Really?
we the people. Who are you for, by the way?
The rich.
I am for capitalism. Yes, I am
Yeah.
for rich.
What kind of
Absolutely.
give
You
me,
wanna
give me,
make
wait a
us
second,
poor.
wait a second,
You
wait a
want
second.
75%
Give me your
of the
definition.
land
What's that?
is
What is
land.
capitalism, by the way?
Well,
What's your definition
well,
of capitalism?
the definition of capitalism
Yeah.
is the one where,
wait, listen.
where private property is sacred. Mr. Che
Private
Guevara,
property? No, this
private
is capitalism.
properties-
Is people with a lot of capital want to make profit and profit on people like this and me and you.
You're very
on
much
working people.
Look it up.
You understand?
Look it up.
I have a look in
look
the
up
dictionary. I have the
difference.
American Standard Dictionary.
So
That's
look
where
it
I got
up.
the thing.
Look
I don't
it
have
up.
to look it up. I know it.
So what's socialism?
You
then?
don't know shit about it.
Well,
Public
if
ownership
that's
of
your
the means of
argument, then
production.
there is no point of arguing any further.
No, not here.
All right, all right, all right.
You're racist too, man.
Yeah, whatever.
Goldman Sachs right here. Battery Day. You know how many millions, hundreds of billions of dollars they stole? Shit.
So how many people do you think capitalism killed?
What?
You say capitalism kills.
Yeah,
How many people do you think capitalism
hundreds of millions.
capitalism
Kills hundreds of millions.
Oh.
There's 2 billion people living on $2 a day. Yeah.
because of capitalism?
Because of capitalism, right? Right.
And
They're sitting on trillions of dollars right here that they stole. Keep the camera down.
okay.
They stole trillions of dollars from our labor. And that they made off these oil wars with 703 military bases in 130 countries. All that money is being used against us. There's more than enough to feed people. Instead, they're privatizing land all over the world.
How many people do you think socialism killed and communism?
Socialism, first of all, didn't kill anybody. Socialism basically was state capitalism. Communism never really existed. If they were smart enough, there were a few communists. They would have outdone the profit system. That was what killed socialism.
So what system was there in the USSR, for example?
Well, the idea was, if you think when the Soviet Union had a socialist revolution, there were millions on the bread lines here in the United States. Over there, they had full employment for generations. People were going over there to find out.
Did they kill anybody?
Huh?
Did they kill anybody?
Who kill anybody?
So, like
the capitalists?
Stalin? No, like socialist system. Stalin, Lenin.
Did we kill anybody when we killed all the Indians that lived here? We killed all the slaves?
We're talking about specifically
yeah,
socialism.
I'm talking about a system.
So
Capitalism kills.
But about Stalin? Did Stalin kill anybody?
Of course.
But
of course, when you have a
Mao Zedong, did he kill anybody?
The reason why France and all those other countries only lasted 7 days before Hitler, because he had all his underground people in those countries. Stalin killed off some of them. That's why at least the revolution lasted. It was the Soviet Union that destroyed the Nazis. If it wasn't for the Soviet Union, we'd all be speaking German right now.
And you don't think that it was the Soviet Union that invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939, together with the Germans?
Sure.
So it was the Russians who actually started the Second World War. They're just as culpable as the Germans are,
well,
no?
by that time they had become capitalist.
The Soviet Union became capitalist?
Of course.
Now, you're saying that they never achieved the true socialism. Do you think
they never achieved communism.
Communism. And you
they
think
had socialism,
what about,
which is state capitalism.
Socialism
is state capitalism.
Then what's the definition of socialism versus definition of capitalism?
It's the same thing.
Oh, so socialism.
It's a profit system. It's wages.
So
it's capitalism.
Socialism. Wait a minute. In socialism, you're allowed to have a profit. You're saying?
Sure.
Do you know that if you buy something for a ruble, and obviously ruble is the currency in the USSR, and you sell it for 2 rubles, it's punishable by 3 years behind bars.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Then how come there was big lines of shortages during the Soviet Union? And as soon as they became capitalist, the next day the streets were full of goods.
Because they embraced capitalism. Exactly.
Yeah, because the capitalists, that's what I'm saying.
So people became happier.
So socialism was capitalism.
No. Okay, once again, if you buy something for a ruble in Russia and sell it for 2,
first of all, if you have money,
you can't have money in the Soviet Union. It was worthless. Worthless.
Well, if you have money, you have capitalism.
You cannot have money in the Soviet Union. It's worthless. You cannot buy anything.
Whatever you say, they had it. That's capitalism.
No, they didn't. Well, I mean, they used the money in circulation.
Well, so that's capitalism.
So you're saying that every country that has the money is called a capitalist country.
Yeah.
And that's your definition.
We need a system where there's no profit. No profit.
No profit,
no profits,
no money.
No money. No.
So will you work for no profit?
Of course. We're working now, and most people don't have a chance to work. Imagine if you put billions of unemployed people to work. How much wealth that would produce for everyone.
And how can it produce wealth if they're not getting any money? There's no money.
The
if
wealth
you go to buy bread,
they have
what are you
no
going to buy it with?
Now they're committing suicide. They're starving to death. If they work, they have food, they have shelter, they have everything else. They're creating wealth for everybody.
What would they work for if there's no money?
They work for food, for shelter, for have a job, to have a life.
And how do you think you'll get the shelter in the Soviet Union, for example?
How would you get shelter in the Soviet Union?
Yeah.
Well, if you had communism, you put full employment.
In the Soviet
Any
Union.
place, you put full employment. In this country, full employment. You got millions of people in the street with millions of homes empty. Figure it out. That's capitalism.
So, do you think that they have socialism or communism in North Korea, for example?
What?
Do you think that they have socialism in North Korea, for example?
Sure.
They have socialism.
That's what I call state capitalism.
So, is this a good system or is it a bad system?
No, it's not a good thing. It was at least to fascism.
So what's your solution?
That's even Hitler called his movement socialism.
So in other words, you are willing to work for no money. And if you go to
I'm willing to work for people, to have a job. I'm willing to have a job.
But if you go to work and there's no money, how the employer is going to pay you?
Well, just because you were brought up and all you know is money, me, that's not my problem. Millions of workers around the world, they don't have any money in villages. They share everything they got. If you go there, they'll share with you what little they got. You come over here, you ask for nickel, or kick you in the face.
Well, see, the thing is, I was actually born in USSR.
Were you born where?
I was born in USSR.
Okay.
So I spent the first 29 years behind the Iron Curtain. And if you were to open borders of the former evil empire, the number of people that would remain over there would have been close to 0. Everybody would love to come to the United States of America.
But that, you're talking about they were a capitalist system. Nobody wanted that.
In the Soviet Union, there was a capitalist system.
They were exploiting those countries that were using them as colonies.
And they were killing millions of people.
They weren't killing millions of people. No.
But Stalin killed.
The U.S. capitalists killed more people than any country in the world.
Stalin, he killed 50 million people. You know that, right?
No.
He didn't kill 50 million people?
No.
Mao Zedong killed about 70 million people?
Listen, you know...
How many people do you think Stalin killed?
I'll tell you this much. If you win the war, you write the history books. If you listen to people who control the media here, the one thing they fear is communism, because that means their end. So they'll make up any lie, anything they can about a system that's a threat to them. So they say Stalin killed millions. If it wasn't
you don't think that Stalin killed millions of people?
No. Maybe close to a million, but not.
So, but a million killed here, a million killed there, doesn't really make much of a difference, right?
If you kill a million fascists, it's okay by me.
But Stalin killed totally innocent people.
No. They were fascists. They were fascists, just like the people who took over France and took over Holland, all those countries for the Nazis.
Was Stalin a Nazi?
No.
He wasn't a Nazi. Okay, then let's say the second in command. For example, Marshal Tukhachevsky. Was he a Nazi or not?
How the hell I know?
Well, but you're claiming that he only killed the Nazis.
I'm talking about systems. I'm talking about...
But you're saying, hold on, you said...
First of all, were you living under the Tsar?
I lived in the Soviet Union.
Did you live under the Tsar?
Well, under the Tsars, it was better than under the so-called communism.
Did you know what it was like to live under the Tsar?
Yes, I do. My great-grandparents lived over there. It was much better. There was no famine.
Yeah, no famine, right?
12 million that were starved to death during the Holodomor in Ukraine between 1932.
How about all the millions that were killed in the wars and were killed by the Tsar's troops? And after the revolution, what happened? There was full employment for everyone, and everybody had food, education, and a job, and the Soviet Union became one of the biggest powers in the world.
So, well, first of all, you think that killing, as you said, only 1 million people justifies having full employment.
Listen, when you say only 1 million people...
You said only 1 million people.
Yes.
You said only 1 million people here. It doesn't really mean much.
How many millions do you think the United States killed?
Of innocent people. Exactly zero. Exactly zero in a sense.
It shows that I'm talking to somebody who's a total product that doesn't know anything about history.
Give me an example where the United States of America killed anyone without due process.
What about all the genocide against the whole Indian nation here, wiping out of a whole people? Millions of slaves killed here and on the ships coming over here.
I'm not gonna go back in history.
Now you can't go back.
I mean, I can, but it's gonna be a long conversation. We're talking specifically about capitalism. How many people were killed in the 20th century? Stalin was in the 20th century.
No.
So let's
talking about a system.
No.
Capitalism is a system.
How many people were killed by capitalist system in the 20th century? You said.
I don't want your limitations.
But how many people were killed in the 20th century by capitalism? I'm trying to reason with you. I'm trying to get your mindset.
If you want to limit it to only a period. In the 20th century, the United States sent the 7th Fleet to Japan under Admiral Perry, forced them to open up Japan to U.S. exports. Went into the Philippines, killed millions of people, went into Spain, went into Cuba and all those countries in Latin America, killed millions of people, went into the Second World War, killed millions of people.
So you don't think that we were attacked on December 7th, 1941?
Of course.
Your Democratic president said that it's the day that will live in infamy.
Of course.
And what were we supposed to do? To wait until the Japan would invade us and enslave us?
This passed to me. He just had to let me sit here.
He just lives on his bike.
Are you serious about the hammer and sickle here?
There's a couple communists here in our camp that were mostly anarchists.
Okay, so communists or anarchists?
I'm an anarchist. Most of the people here are anarchists as well. There's a couple communists we're trying to win over to our side though.
Okay.
And I still think communism is a good idea, but it's never been tried. The Soviet Union was never communist. China is not communist. Vietnam, Laos, Cuba. communism's never been given a fair chance. Everyone has used the name Communist Party when they take power to just turn it into an authoritarian dictatorship.
But don't you think that it's going to happen every time when you try? I mean, we've tried so many times, and in every occasion we failed.
I don't necessarily think it does need tried, but I think if it did, it would need to be tried with American characteristics.
But why? What's wrong with capitalism then? I mean, after all, capitalism gave.
Most of the world hungry and
how so? I mean, name me a single capitalist country where people, a developed capitalist country where people go hungry versus
the United States.
Versus
go hungry every day here.
Well, but let's put it in perspective. I mean, I don't know anyone who would literally go hungry. For example, in the USSR, between 1932 and 1933, about 10 million people died because of starvation.
But you can't attribute that to communism. That was Joseph Stalin being a scumbag.
Well, but aren't all of them? I mean, when you think of it, everyone who claims to be a communist ends up being what you term to be a scumbag.
Yeah, it's true. But I don't think communism has been given a fair chance. People use the name, but they don't.
But everybody. But that's my point. Everybody tries it. I mean, isn't this a simple hammer and sickle kind of?
The hammer and sickle was a symbol of the workers' rights movement in Europe long before the Bolsheviks. So.
Tell him, Brendan.
But we all know how it all ended up again in Cuba, in Soviet Russia, North Korea.
All right, Cuba's an interesting
China.
one because I don't like how the government in Cuba is so oppressive and silences all dissent. However, Cuba has the higher standard of living of any country in the Caribbean.
You really think so?
Yes, they do.
Education
You think?
and medical.
Free guaranteed housing, everyone is guaranteed work.
You think so?
That I've heard.
They did in Cuba, but let's say if you get an education, what are you going to do with it? You can't get a decent job. Even if you're educated. If you're a doctor, for example, you're paid half of a salary of a blue-collar worker. You know that, right?
Well, I mean, why should a doctor be paid exorbitantly more than a blue-collar worker to begin with?
How about being just more than a blue-collar worker? Then, let's say, a street sweeper. Do you think the doctor should be paid more than, let's say, I don't know, a mechanic, for example, or a street sweeper?
In a system where education is free and that doctor didn't have to pay his own, capital in order to get that job, not necessarily. As somebody who has a graduate degree, I don't necessarily think I should be making exorbitantly more than somebody who didn't have that
let's for argument's sake, remove the word exorbitant. Just the doctor. Don't you think that to be a doctor, you invest in your education, and you
not if your education is paid for by the government.
Hold on. Let me continue my thought. As a patient, when you see a doctor, you want the doctor to be a good doctor. I mean, after all, your life is in the doctor's hands, right? Of course. So, for someone like a doctor to be motivated to be a good doctor, meaning to save your life or to help you when you have an ailment, wouldn't you want that to be a good doctor? So what's his motivation then to be a good doctor when, in the end, someone who didn't go to school and sweeps the streets gets the same salary as a doctor, especially a good doctor?
I definitely appreciate this argument, but I've never met somebody who went into medicine because they wanted to make money. They wanted to save people's lives. I became a lawyer because I wanted to help people who couldn't afford to participate in the legal system.
And you're paid more than a blue-collar worker.
Before that, I was a teacher, and I didn't become a teacher because of the salary. I became a teacher because I wanted to help children learn. So I think that when people are doing jobs that they really enjoy, they don't need a financial incentive to do those jobs well. They do it because they want to.
So you don't think that, let's say, American doctors are better than Cuban doctors, right?
I'm sure there is a Cuban doctor that's better than an American doctor.
One Cuban doctor, perhaps. Yes.
I mean, we could take a study and see how satisfied patients are in Cuba versus America.
Well, let's say one of the best parameters, I guess, when it comes to gauging the health of a system is the lifespan of a person. For instance, if you take all the capitalist countries, the lifespan is much longer than any of that of the people that live in, I know, social, let's say not capitalist countries, call them socialist dictatorships or whatever.
In certain socioeconomic brackets. So, for example, in Mississippi, Mississippi has one of the highest
I'm talking about the
rates.
I'm talking about the country on the average. Let's say the United States of America, Japan, Liechtenstein, for instance, versus Russia. Do you know the life expectancy in Russia of a man?
I can't say I do.
Okay, do you know life expectancy of a man in the United States?
75 is it now?
Yeah, roughly. 75, 77, something within that range. Do you know what, by comparison, is the life expectancy of someone who lives in Russia these days?
I don't know.
Take a guess.
65, 50.
How about if I say between 57 and 60?
That's a big difference, but
it's
again...
It's a humongous difference. And how can you attribute this low life expectancy? What are they going to attribute it to?
I wouldn't attribute it to the undermotivation of doctors, but rather a lack of resources that the USSR has in comparison with America.
Wouldn't you agree that to extend somebody's life, you really have to have the medication that basically extends your life, A, and B, when it comes to the diagnostic equipment?
We do. I mean, in this country, we have inflated pharmaceutical prices, and we are the only country that doesn't, to my knowledge, first world country, that doesn't regulate prescription prices. So in other countries, in England, for example, you can't charge whatever you want for a prescription. The government sets a price for it. So, I mean, we spend so much more on medical care in this country. I mean, maybe it has some kind of impact over the long term, but
have you ever used a medicine developed, researched and developed in Cuba or in Russia or in North Korea, for example?
I know that the pharmaceutical companies argue they need that money for development, but over the last 10 years, they've spent more money developing things like erectile dysfunction drugs than they have malaria medication.
But the point is, the system that we have over here, since the pharmaceutical company invests billions and billions of dollars in the research, isn't it the money well spent to extend the life and the quality of life of people? Shouldn't they make profit so that they can reinvest it and develop a better diagnostic equipment, better medication? Don't you think so?
But they're not putting that money back into diagnostic equipment and medication for curable diseases. They're putting that money into development for drugs that are profitable, like again, your allergy medication or erectile dysfunction drugs.
Well, let me, for full disclosure, I was actually born and raised in Russia, in USSR.
Говорите по-русски?
Я говорю по-русски. So, have you ever been to Russia?
I haven't, no.
So, but since you know a couple of phrases, at least in Russian, probably you're familiar with the system before and after USSR, and especially when there was a system that some called socialist, some called whatever, but they're all united by the same term, totalitarian regimes. So, me, as the person who lived in the USSR for the first 29 years of my life, I'm still, having been here for 23 years by now, I'm amazed when I go to a pharmacy and whatever medication I need is going to be available in 15 minutes. In the Soviet Union, there isn't such a thing. You go to a pharmacy and you get the medication right away. Or you go to a doctor and the doctor is going to see you. But most importantly, to actually help you.
I would not in any way defend the USSR system, especially.
But that's what people are defending with the hammer and sickle. Whenever I see hammer and sickle, I mean, where are they going to take us to? To the same system, failed system that being tried and failed, resulting in hundreds of millions of people
really
killed.
As a communist was a part of this camp? No.
As a what?
As a communist was part of this camp? No.
So where would it go then? What's
a new kind of system? I mean, it's something that I think needs to be collectively decided upon. I have my own ideas about how business should be structured, blah blah.
But what do you mean?
I will certainly say that if by communism you mean pretty much everything that happened in the 20th century, I am not a communist.
But what are the other? There are no other forms.
This is the mindset, and I love it, and I agree with you 100% of kind of modern I think the term communism is something that makes people incredibly uncomfortable because of the history.
Okay, how about if we use the word socialism? They all try using, you know, fancy words. It's like as if we call our system paradise, will it become a paradise?
Socialist because that's what they called themselves.
Then who were they?
They're a bunch of goons calling themselves communists and ruining the nation.
Well, but that's true, like I said, with every single society that tried another system, that rejected the
we call ourselves a capitalist society, but when you have a government that bails out the wealthiest free institutions, that's no longer really capitalism, because capitalism should let failing businesses fail.
Okay, then how? I agree with that. But then what's the definition of socialism and capitalism? I mean, words are supposed to have meaning. Then what's the definition?
Capitalism's the simplest way to put it is an unrestrained free market, and socialism is a market that's directed and run by the state.
Okay, then how about a little bit different definition, which to my mind fundamentally makes one different from the other when you look at the private property rights. That's the fundamental difference between the two, wouldn't you agree?
Capitalism, the means of production are controlled in private hands, and socialism, they're controlled by the state.
Right, and that's why the latter one fails and the first one succeeds.
Socialism, where it's been attempted, has mostly failed because it was run by piss-poor bureaucrats. Capitalism here in America is failing right now. Why else would these banks
Of course it's not. It's failing. You know why it's failing? Because of too much infusion of socialism. The less socialism we have, the more successful this country will be.
Anywhere in this country.
Of course, there's plenty of social programs. Wherever you look, like welfare. Isn't it a socialist program, for instance?
It is, but you know, that doesn't interfere with the free market, though.
Well, yes, it does.
I think it's
Government,
the duty of any government to take care of its people when they're in need.
Government regulations, wherever you go, the government control your life from birth to end. Whatever you're trying to do, the government is in control.
I despise that. That's why I'm an anarchist.
Then,
however, it's not just the government. The capitalism itself.
Yes.
Banking institutions, large corporations that control the manufacture of everything we buy, they interfere with our lives as much as the government does.
And you're laughing because?
I don't know. Different signals and different voices.
Signals, okay, from space, I guess. Okay, well, anyway.
It's nice to meet you. That's a good conversation. Pleasure. My name's Aaron, by
I'm
the way.
Vladimir.
Vladimir?
Pleasure.
I'll see you around.
See ya. Bye-bye. So are you representing?
Or this will be my 10th one.
So is this going to solve our energy issues? What's that?
What does your shirt say?
Thank you, President Bush. President Bush being one of the best presidents we've ever had.
Oh my God.
I'm sure you'll agree with that, right?
I gotta take your picture. I don't know if you're real or not.
Of course I'm real. I'm a Republican. I'm also a member of National Rifle Association. Yeah. Of course. Unemployment 4.5% under Bush.
¿Eres Latino?
Unemployment 4.5%.
Are you Latino?
What's that?
Are you Latino?
No, I'm from Russia. Yeah. And are you where from?
I'm from here.
Yeah, right. Go to Cuba. Yeah, right. Like in Russia, millions of people killed, right? That's what you want? And this is your solution?
I don't know if you're fucking with me or you're real. This guy walks up with a thank you President Bush and an NRA badge.
Of course I'm real.
I don't know if he's fucking with me.
No, I'm serious.
Is Ashton Kutcher gonna come out and like punk me or what?
No, you don't like President Bush?
Oh, man.
Why not? What's wrong with Bush?
Dude, I'm like, honestly, that is so fucking ridiculous that I'm not even gonna go into it with you. It is so ridiculous that you are wearing that shirt.
Why?
You want to come here and you want to start something with somebody because you're coming here to learn all that.
What?
Like, come on.
Well, I came from Russia. How about if I start with that premise? Okay. How about if I start with the fact that when I see these hammers and sickle all over here, it makes me sick because that leads to hundreds of millions of people killed. You agree with, you know that, right?
Right, in Russia lots of people die.
Well, yeah, because of the system.
Right.
And this is what these people advocate. Do you advocate socialism and communism? Is this what you want?
I don't advocate
No, there's a difference between regulation and communism. There's a difference between regulating corporations and between communism. It's not the same.
When you see hammer and sickle, and when they use the words communism or socialism, words have meaning. They have definitions, right?
And you lived it, so that's a different reality than people who have not lived it.
Well, exactly, and
I understand that.
And that's what pisses me off. I mean, when I talk to people and when you see the symbol of a hammer and sickle, I just had a conversation with the people over there. Symbols have meaning. The meaning of the hammer and sickle is hundreds, not just millions, but hundreds of millions of people that kill for no reason whatsoever.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think that those things happen within the communist socialist structure because of the authoritarian abuse of power?
It's not the abuse. So when you use the word abuse of power, it presupposes that there was supposed to be something different, and that's what it deteriorated into. No. When you look from the first so-called socialist revolution, which was done by Lenin, obviously, in 1917, the first thing that he did, in his own words, was the Red Terror.
I remember hearing about that.
And the word terror, speaking of the meaning of the words, supposed to mean something. Terrorizing, meaning killing innocent people, and the definition of innocent people is taking somebody else's life without the due process, right? So now that we've defined the terms, communism, socialism, call it whatever you want, they're all united under one banner, which is dictators. They're all dictatorships.
So do you think it's possible to have either a communist structure or a social structure that includes democracy?
No.
That includes equal representation?
No.
Do you think any kind of regulation
not on an economic level, you don't think it's possible to have the economic structure with the democratic political structure combined? So that
it's like you're for no regulation. You're for absolute.
No. Of course not. No.
You're talking about a political system. Is that what you're upset about?
Well, both, because they're all interconnected. I mean, name a single so-called socialist or totalitarian country where the standard of living would be higher than that of the capitalist countries. Name me one.
Well, it depends on what you mean by standard of living. Yeah, if you mean that the standard of living. No. If you mean, like, if you're looking at some of Norway, Sweden, some of the Norwegian countries have.
But they're not socialist. What's your definition of socialist?
Why do you think they're not socialist?
Because
they have socialized medicine.
See, you're using a different word. You're not using the word socialism. You're using the word socialized or social. And this is a totally different thing. Social system versus socialism.
I think what they're advocating is more like a socialized system.
No. Socialism. And there was a lady over here, I was here like several weeks ago, and I just happened to bump into a lady who claimed that life in North Korea is better than the life in South Korea. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed.
That the life in North Korea is better than the life of the people in South Korea?
Right, but I guess being on the outside, we need to deal with that.
No, it's okay, that's my brother.
Later.
Yeah, I'll come back later.
No, I mean...
God bless Israel! Amen. God bless Israel! Israel has good. It's good that Israel has nuclear bombs. Good for them.
Why do you say that?
Why do I say that? Well, because the guy says Israel has 500 nuclear bombs. Okay, if that's true, nobody knows for sure. Right. Good for them. Good for them. Good for Israel. God bless Israel.
Oh, yeah? I don't want this spread of nuclear bombs everywhere. Do you? It just makes the world more and more dangerous.
No, that's why we were not destroyed by the Soviet Union. Had we not had nuclear... Well, first of all, we won the Second World War to start with.
I understand, but I also understand that there's a point at which nuclear proliferation makes the world really more dangerous.
I agree with that.
Really more dangerous.
I agree with that, but that's where you draw the line. If it's a democracy, nuclear arms are fine. If it's not good. Israel does fall into the definition of being a democratic country. Plain and simple.
I don't know.
Well, I do, being on both sides of the Iron Curtain. I do.
I don't want to see. I mean, and it's a moot point anyway. Israel has nuclear weapons.
We don't know for sure, but I hope that they do.
We're pretty sure that they do.
I hope so that they do. They need them.
Well, they do, actually. They're threatened on all sides
absolutely. I mean,
people who want their absolute abolishment.
I mean, think about this way. If, let's say, we were hit by the rockets, even once, from Mexico, for example, or from Canada, do you think we would have been sitting hands down and doing nothing about it?
Absolutely not.
I mean, we would have ravaged the country. We would have absolutely destroyed them until we would have put the end to the aggression, right? And for some reason, when Israel defends itself, it's a bad thing. Do you think there's hypocrisy there?
No, I don't have any problem with Israel defending itself. No, I have no problem, actually. You're talking to the wrong...
All right. No, just where we're talking.
But I do think that there has been a shift in power, and that Israel is starting to take lands that they had even after 67 war. They're taking in even more land than they had then. They're occupying territories of Palestinian folks.
Did we go into war with Mexico way back?
Right.
Did we take
absolutely.
And
when they
Mexico,
initially took
California?
it was absolutely justified. They were being threatened and attacked.
Well,
what are they going to do? They're going to take as much as they can to protect us.
That's how it is.
But it's not that way now. There's been a change.
Well, not really. Only when it comes to Israel. Only when it comes to Israel.
There's been a change.
I mean, take the Second World War. When it ended, we drew the borders. And that's where we are today. Nobody challenges that.
We didn't draw the borders.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't.
Oh, of course we
did.
The
English and the French drew the borders. The Americans didn't draw the borders.
Well,
so if you're...
Well...
They did.
We drew the borders, I mean the world.
Well, I don't know what happened. In Israel, have you been in Israel?
What's this?
It's good for you.
Well, why is it good?
Because it's the Wall Street Journal.
How is it Wall Street when it says Occupy?
I'm sorry, what?
How is it Wall Street when it says Occupy?
It's the Wall Street Journal.
Well,
the occupied Wall Street.
Well, yeah, exactly. So what are they trying to achieve? I wonder. We're just having this discussion. Educate about what?
About the greed in our government and how it ruins the world.
How does it ruin the world?
Because they use money to get more money because they're greedy, and the way they do that is starting wars, stealing oil, confining people, you know, all of that shit.
Really? So
we have over 100 military bases around the world.
Well, nothing wrong with that, but let me ask you this. If you're, are you against the profit, against greed, against capitalism? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
You're against capitalism.
Why wouldn't I? What's good about it?
What better?
I'm sorry, what?
And if you're against capitalism, what are you going to replace it with?
A true democracy?
What is a true democracy?
Where the people control the land that they live in.
How are you going to accomplish that?
I guess it's a long road, huh?
Okay, give me step 1, step 2, step 3. Give me sort of a roadmap of how to achieve that.
Well, see, we live in a democracy, but
no, we don't. We don't have a democracy.
It's supposed to be a democracy.
Well, do you remember what Benjamin Franklin used to say about democracy?
What did he say?
Did you go to school here?
I'm sorry, what?
You went to school here, right?
Schools around here are horrible, dude.
Horrible, I agree. All liberal. But the point I'm trying to make is that he said that democracy is when 2 wolves and a lamb are voting what to have for lunch.
So what do you think we should do?
Well, we have the best system that has ever been created, constitutional republic. Representative republic. It's not a democracy.
Our Constitution's out the window right now.
How so? Are you against the American Constitution?
These people, the NYPD, they can take me indefinitely without reading me any rights.
Really?
And throw me in prison for 72 hours. That's a new law that
what do you think will happen in a socialist country? And has there ever been a socialist country before?
I don't believe so.
So there has never been a socialist country.
Is there?
I'm asking you. I don't know. I'm happy with capitalism. You know, I'm as happy as I can be.
You're okay with NYPD using their own tow trucks and taking towing trucks out of business?
If you break the law, they follow the law. That's how it works. If there's a new law, they follow whatever the law is right now until the law is being changed. Here's an example.
You can't change the law.
Of course you can. That's what people do all the time.
We're trying.
Well, of course they do change the laws all the time. That's what the Congress is for.
Well, they just institute more laws. They don't actually. I don't think they change them. They just keep bringing more into effect.
Well, they change laws. They make new laws. Exactly. It's changing because we're changing. The system is changing. Things are changing. Technology is changing. A lot of things are changing, right? So the thing is that this gentleman, Valerie and me, we just met. We all came from USSR. Okay. And we were just talking about...
That's awesome. I'd love to live in Russia.
Really? Let me give you an example of life in USSR. In USSR, if you're walking like this, you're talking about police just grabbing you.
Yeah.
In USSR, for no reason whatsoever, they will take you away, and your relatives will never ever hear from you again. And that happens to tens of millions of people.
Why isn't that talked about?
What's that?
I've never heard of that. Why isn't that talked about?
Because this is what they like to call socialism or communism. But they use the word socialism and communism to hide the true meaning of the system, which is totalitarian regime or dictatorship.
Right.
So whenever you try this Wall Street Occupy, you know how it's going to end up? Dictatorship.
You think?
I know. And here's the reason why. Lenin in 1917 had really great slogans, just like you have great slogans. He used to say, remember, power to the people. Sounds great, right? Bread to the people. Sounds great. What other slogans were over there? Land to the peasants. So those are great slogans, right? Well, guess what? At the same time, Lenin was instituting what he himself called the Red Terror, killing thousands up to millions eventually of people, innocent people, and that's the key word, innocent people without due process. So is this something that?
Same slogan.
But what if the whole world kind of agreed on
how can you talk about the whole world?
Because the whole world's doing it.
The whole world agree on something, then just three of us are standing over here and we cannot agree on certain things. Three of us. You want 7 billion people to agree on something? And if you want them to...
What if it's nothing? We don't agree on nothing and it's just there. We just live.
Well, that's why every country follows its certain way. So if you look at the standard of living, if you look at the freedoms, there's no better country in the world than the United States of America. Give me another example where the system is better than the United States of America. One example.
I'm sorry, what?
Give me one example where people live better than the way we live here in this country in terms of freedoms, in terms of opportunities.
Canada?
Okay, well, let's assume for argument's sake. Well, let's say for argument's sake, Canada. Okay, fine. But Canada basically has the same system that we have over here, more or less. You know, slight differences, but generally speaking, it's the same capitalist system. So you wanted to change to, you said, something different.
A true democracy, but...
What is a true democracy? What is it?
When the people actually control the land.
Well, we control where the people
who are actually heard.
Well, our voices are heard. I mean, there are so many TV channels. I mean, you're here.
People, you know?
What's that?
They use dead people for votes. You know, like.
Well, okay. Let's say for argument's sake, let's say this is happening. Okay, but in dictatorship, you don't vote at all. I mean, your votes don't count at all. It doesn't matter. Look at the election in Iran, for example. Remember? Look what's happening, well, I guess, in a way, in Syria today. I mean, people are trying to vote. In the end, they get killed. Ahmadinejad got sort of elected, and innocent people were killed in the streets. So, how can you say that we don't have freedoms over here when we have most opportunities and most freedoms that anyone has ever had in the history of humanity? Isn't it so? Because of the system that we have today. You want to change that?
Yeah, because I think it's hiding everything and letting our system control the rest of the world.
How does our system control the rest of the world?
We have military bases.
So what? Because of military? Remember, do you remember what happened in...
Israel. Israel's on an expansion mark where they're going to take over Iran. I mean, that's just one example.
Wait.
We took over Israel.
Okay,
we assigned the Shah. We control Israel.
Let me ask you this. Let's say you live in Buffalo, okay? And Buffalo is, is very close borders, or Rochester borders Canada.
I live in Rochester.
Good. So Canada is right there, okay? Yeah. So imagine that in the middle of the night, all of a sudden, rockets start falling on your house from Canada. What are you gonna do? Yeah. Well, what are you gonna do if Canadians will start sending rockets to Rochester? Because they want the United States of America to be eliminated from Earth.
I think a lot of people do.
So what are you gonna do? You're an American citizen, you live in Rochester, Canadians are sending rockets to Rochester. What are you gonna do?
Well, send rockets back.
Exactly.
That's bad.
Exactly. So what happens in Israel?
Israel, we control Israel. We're trying to take over Iran. What do you mean? You think because bombs have been dropped?
Well,
in
Israel was. Do you like the United Nations? Do you support the United Nations?
Kind of, not really. No.
Okay, kind of. I'm not the really big fan of United Nations at all, to say the least.
They don't really stay true to their word.
But the point is that the United Nations was the body where the most countries, the world countries, they voted for the creation of the State of Israel. So it was a legal entity. I mean, let's forget about the fact that Israel has existed there 2,000 years back. So even what was there 3,000 years back? When Jesus Christ was there and before, what was there? Was it called Palestine? No. Have you heard the countries such as Judea, for example, King Solomon, Mesopotamia, King Solomon, right? The Jews lived there, right? They spoke, by the way, the same language that they speak today, right? They worship the same God as they worship today, some 3,000 years ago, right? So the Jews have been living there way before anyone was called a Palestinian, correct? But let's forget about that part of history. Let's talk about the recent history. So the State of Israel was created, right? Because before it was the State of Israel, you know what was there?
Palestine?
No. What? No. It was the Ottoman Empire.
Oh, of course.
You know, the Turks were there.
Yeah.
So the Muslims lived over there, the Jews lived over there. Okay, so they lived together in the same land, but it all belonged to Turkey, to the Ottoman Empire, right? So after the Holocaust, after 6 million Jews were exterminated by the Nazis, the world decided that the Jews finally deserved their own place. And there was a voting. You like democracy, right? So you support voting. The majority decided that the State of Israel has to be created.
I don't vote because I don't think voting
the United Nations, you say democracy about voting.
Yeah, okay.
So they physical power. So the State of Israel was created, right? The minute when Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister or president of Israel, declared independence in Tel Aviv, in Dizengoff House, I visited it when I was in Israel, the rockets started falling on Israel. What was Israel to do? We're talking about the legal entity, the legal state. They created two states, the state of Palestine, the state of Israel. The Jews said, okay, we'll take it. What did the Palestinians do? They could have had their land for 70 or so years already. But they refused. And they refused because they said, you know what? We don't want Israel. We want to kill every single Jew. Or they should either convert to Islam or we'll just throw them into the sea. What were the Jews to do? There was a legally designated border. The state created by the United Nations.
I think there's a lot of shit behind that we have no idea about. But why are you rolling your eyes at me? You just told me a simple thing like...
Well, because it's just look, if you don't believe the facts, I mean, what else can I tell you? I mean, I'm
not saying I don't believe you.
Well, you just said, oh, there's a lot of, to quote you, shit happening that we don't know. Well, this is very simple. I mean, these are simple facts. You can go to any liberal, right, left sources, you'll get the same exact facts. The dates, when the state of Israel...
like they were threatened when the Jews got their own state? You don't feel that they were threatened at all?
The Jews were threatened?
No. You don't feel that the Palestinians were threatened at all when Israel was created?
Who started the war? Like I said, you live in Rochester. You mind your own business, okay? This is your city. You go to school. You do whatever you do. You protest. I mean, it's your business. All of a sudden, the Canadians say, you know what? We want to take Rochester because we don't think that Rochester has the rights to exist. Right. We want to take it over. What are you going to do?
Like you said, or like I said, bomb them back.
See, that's exactly what Israel is doing. So that's what's happening over there. You know what they're saying? If the Arabs didn't have the arms, they would have been peace. If the Israel didn't have the arms, there wouldn't have been Israel. Ever heard this expression?
I don't know if that would be true. I think they're just protecting something that they live on.
They protect their land just like you would protect Rochester.
Right.
So it's a normal thing. What the Israelis do, they protect themselves. When nobody attacks them, they mind their own business. That's what they do.
Why do they have the most advanced military in the world?
Because how many Israelis are there in Israel? How many people?
It's a small state.
What's that?
It's a small state.
It's a small state. How many Arabs are there? All enemies.
They're everywhere.
Exactly, all enemies. So what is Israel to do? If they didn't have that much military, they would have been destroyed. They wouldn't have existed, just like Rochester wouldn't have existed. If the whole Canada was against Rochester, not the United States, but just one Rochester, what would Rochester do? I guess beef up with military as much as it can, right? Yeah. So that's exactly what Israel is doing. Make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Okay. See, simple logic.
Right.
So we can agree on something, right?
Hey man, you taught me some things.
Okay, good. So use not just the brains, but common sense. That's my favorite expression. Common sense. See, in just what, 15 minutes or so with common sense and simple facts. I'm not getting deep whether some obscure facts. I mean, this is something that everyone knows. I mean, everyone. You know, I know, everyone in the street knows that. But just use simple logic and then all of a sudden, you know, you think, wait a minute, that actually makes sense, right? God bless capitalism.
God bless capitalism.
Yes. This is the system that works. Okay?
Thank you. Capitalism.
Yes. Take it back. I don't need it.
Я как бы в reply утоплю. Очень хорошо ты дискутируешь.